This is the video for split loot routines. Routine starts out here on the left and ends up over here on the right. First thing it does is it sets the number count to 40. There are going to be 40 pieces of loot. Then it does a reset. That resets all probability distributions to their beginning. So every time you do this game, it's going to play the same way. It's going to select the same numbers using this heck action down here. Then it fills numerically 100 values of value to 0. Then it sets SG to the game number. That's going to be used for the seed down here for the game's probability distribution. And then it sets equally likely to 40. When it runs this action peck, it's going to have values from 0 to 39. That's 40 different equally likely values. Then it says for I of 1 to next I, the number count, it's going to use this peck instruction. It's going to keep giving it random values between 0 and 39. Then the next instruction says value sub I is its value plus 10 added to that value. Well, that value goes from 0 to 39, so it's now the value actually is going to be from 10 to 49. Then that's the end of the loop. So when this loop is over, we then have our 40 values for our pieces of loot. Then it sums them up, okay? Adds the number count of values and value at offset 1. If you remember back here when we made our values, it started at offset 1. For the 40 values, it's going to add them up and put them in total. Then it's going to set V to total. It's going to take the modulus of V divided by 2. It wants to know if there's a remainder when it divides it by 2. But it says if that remainder you got is 0, go down here to AE. Otherwise, we're going to go around a loop here. And for I of 1 to the number count, we're going to find a value that is less than 48. When we find that value, we're going to go down here and add 1 to it. Remember, 49 is our highest number, and we want to stay in that range. And the probability that we can't find one of the values that is less than 48, when there's 40 of them, is pretty small. We're going to find one. We're going to add 1 to it because it was an odd value, so it'll be an even value. Well, in either case, it was even or we had to make it even. We take the sum of it again. We say, what's the 40 total of the 40 values at value plus 1? Then we say half is set to that total value, and then we divide half by 2. So now we know what half the value of the loot is. Next, we're going to fill a bunch of lists with zeros, so there's no information in those lists about a previous game that was played. So all 4 of them are going to get zeroed out. We're going to see them later. Next thing it does is sets the value of M to 0. That's going to be a offset counter it's going to use. And then it says I for 1. And over here is next I for the number count, 1 at a time. It's going to go around that loop. Number of count times for each value. Well, the next thing it does is it sets the was count to M. Well, that was 0. But we're going to find out the reason it's doing that is because when it finds new counts, it doesn't want to use the very ones that got created by that particular piece of loot with itself. So it says at the time, the M, the number of ones we found, is what it was at the beginning of this loop around I. So next we set u equal to the value of the ith one, and then we say we're going to start a loop for j of 0, and over here there's next j for that was count. The was count's going to be all the previous ones we found. Alright, well, we're in that loop for j. First thing it does is sets v to the found value at the jth position. These are the ones it found before, and we're going to see how it finds them. It then sums the u and the v to make a value t, the total of the two. It does that simply by saying the two values starting at u. Well, the next value after u is v. So the two values are our u and our v, puts them in t. So we added our current value to some previously found value we had. All right, next thing it says, if that t is equal to half, go to ai. That's down here. Well, that goes to ai when the total is half. This particular sum of the current value we got from I, down here, to a previous sum that we found is equal to half. We know we're done then, so we can go down here to AI. Well, if it didn't equal half, it says if it's greater than half, go to AG. Well, there's no sense of putting it in our found list if it's already greater than half. See, this is dynamic programming. We're eliminating a lot of the possibilities by saying, well, this sum that we previously had plus this new value is only going to create a found value that's already not possible. So we just go down here and we say, well, that jth one didn't do any good. We're not remembering it. But if we should remember it, the first thing we do, we check here to see if it was found before also. If no value is 0, it means we didn't find it before. But if it's not 0, it means we found this value before. Again, this is dynamic programming, so we only have to get that sum once. No sense having 2 or 3, 4 different ways to get that answer. So it checks to see if we knew it before. If we did, well, we don't need to try it again. Well, the very next thing it does is it set the known value of t to 1, so we don't do it again. Then we say, well, we're going to have this one as a new one, so we're going to add 1 to our offset of m. That's the offset for all found values. And we're going to set found values of m to this t value, our total. That's what found value is. It's our previous total. Then we set the from values of m to I. That's so that when we do this with dynamic programming, we're going to know who what the value was, what index was it found at this time. And then the other thing we want to know is the predecessor. Well, the predecessor is j. The predecessor found value is the jth one. Then we're going to go around this loop, as we said, for j to the was count. How many totals were there previous to this? Maybe this time we went around, we added more totals, but we can't include them. It's a was count. Then it's for I, the number count, one at a time. So it adds one number each time to all the found totals we had previously to get the new list of found values. Then if it goes around this loop all the number count times, it's going to set the @g register to 0 and go home. Well, it's giving up. The truth is it probably will go around here about 24 or less of the times, not all 40 times, before it finds a half total. Well, we know it comes down here to AI when it has found the half total. It sets ng to 1. That's going to be the number of ones it found. And then it fills the 50 values at used offsets and the 50 values of used values to 0. It knows there won't be 50 of them, but it wants to make sure they're all 0 when it starts this process. First thing it does is it sets used offset, the very first one, offset at offset 0, to the I value, because that's the one it was on when it found the total. Then it sets P to the predecessor index. Well, at this time it's J, because that's where it went out here. Now, it never set the index to J because it didn't have to. It's the last one. So we know the value is still in J. So we say its predecessor was J. Then here at AK, we set used offsets of NG, that's the next one, to the from value. Remember, up here we always saved what the from value was. Then it adds 1 to NG, and then it says set P to the predecessor of this one. This is dynamic program. Well, what was the solution value index before this one? What was its offset? Well, it was predecessor plus P. Then it says, well, if that value that you found is greater than 0, that means there's another predecessor, so go back to AK. And then it says, oh, well, the next value for an offset NG is the value for that predecessor. And it keeps going around here till it finds all the values that are in the solution for getting to the value of half. Once it doesn't find one anymore, it sets the value of n to ng and then subtracts 1 from it. It's going to go around this loop starting at the 0th offset, so it can't go around for the count of ng because ng of them will be from 0 to n, where n is 1 less than ng. It sets I to the used offset of I, and then sets the value to that jth one from the offset. So then it's putting all the values actually in used values. And that is the end of this routine for split loop routines.